There are a lot of weird creatures that call Honkai Star Rail's universe their home. You have sentient conceptual gods, talking owls, races who are half foxes or half dragons, and then you have the warp trotters. Creatures that seem to be able to defy physics itself, but use their powers to find and eat as much food as they can. Clearly, they are living the dream. While they do seem to appear from time to time, we don't really know much about them. So in this video, we're going to go through everything we know about the warp trotters and explore some theories related to them, one of which may tie them to an eon. Before we talk about these space piggies in further detail, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. Not much is known about the warp trotters themselves. I'd like to say this was some interesting hook to the video, but the truth is, we really don't know anything about them. They are mentioned so scarcely throughout the game that you are more likely to find in-game text talking about each of the 18 eons before you get any details about the Trotters themselves. Now maybe this is because they aren't that important in the grand scheme of things, but it's odd to me that a creature that can functionally break the rules of physics aren't put under the microscope by the best and brightest the universe of Star Rail has to offer. In any case, from their very brief description, warp trotters are mentioned to be interdimensional creatures who can travel from place to place and mostly focus on stuffing their faces with food. At least, I think they have faces. They are described to be quite docile and won't actively attack any other living creature, choosing to instead flee whenever they feel threatened. While its description so far might make you wonder why these things deserve a video of their own, it's their origin and the manner in which they travel that makes them rather interesting. Whenever a player encounters a trotter, most, if not all of them, will start trembling in fear and begin spouting some mathematical formulas. One of these is actually the Schwarzschild radius, a formula used to calculate the radius of a black hole, the distance between the center of said black hole and its event horizon. Now this formula can also be used to determine how large a particular mass has to be in order for it to become a black hole, but I'm not a physicist and this video is about imaginary space traveling piggies, not black holes, so let's get back on topic. This is probably a very strong hint at how these trotters are actually able to traverse space. They are likely creating a black hole by spouting these formulas and then they will use it as a wormhole to move from one place to another. The fact that they are mentioned to be perpetually lost may indicate that they may not be able to control this ability fully, but it does seem that they can indeed collapse space or manipulate it somewhat to facilitate their search for nom-noms. The fact that they are referred to as interdimensional creatures also gives me the impression that perhaps they can travel to places outside of the universe we are able to see. Where this becomes really interesting is when you start involving the eons, the literal gods of Star Rail's universe. The eons are, for all intents and purposes, beings of great mystery. Much like the Trotters, little is known about them, and one of the biggest mysteries related to them is whether or not they actually exist within the current physical dimension. It's been speculated and even hinted that the eons don't actually occupy the same physical space most of the characters do, at least not all the time. In Dancho's diary, it was mentioned that the Eon of the Hunt descended into the physical plane, presumably from a higher plane of existence, before launching its divine arrows in one of the many wars the Xianzhou were a part of. Of course, there are also eons that do occupy physical space like Nous, but it wouldn't be too outlandish to think that the eons can access higher dimensions beyond the physical universe. Given the Trotters are said to be interdimensional creatures, it's possible that they may in fact be able to travel to these higher dimensions where the eons reside. It's also possible that maybe that's where they even originate from. Now, I'll warn you right off the bat, this next idea is pretty ludicrous and I just thought it was fun to include, so don't read too much into it. Let's assume for a second that the Trotters aren't just some space piggies and may actually originate from an eon. When I considered this idea, I wondered which aeon would be the most likely candidate. Could it be Shipei? It's unlikely. Why would Trotters want to bring people together? What about Aha? It's possible, but I couldn't figure out what the punchline would be for Aha to bring these things into existence. As I went through this process, there didn't seem to be any eon that fit the bill. Not any currently living one, that is. There is one eon, however, that lives only to eat. An eon at the head of a path all about consuming but never being satisfied. The eon of voracity, Oroboros. What if the Trotters were once followers of Oroboros, or perhaps even parts of the eon itself? Perhaps they were born from Oroboros and were created to travel the cosmos, collecting food for the Leviathan, or maybe even doing its job as part of the Path of Voracity. I mean, the Trotters do seem to have a bottomless stomach, with Nambi able to house a bunch of things in itself despite its small stature. Maybe the collected food is even returned to Oroboros for it to consume. What's interesting is that ever since the war between Oroboros, Tezeronth, and several other eons, Oroboros hasn't been confirmed to be dead, only missing. It's likely that she is instead in a weakened state, and why the Trotters appear as they do, assuming they are followers of Oroboros. What I'm trying to say here is that there is a possibility that the Trotters are weakened agents of Oroboros, traveling the cosmos collecting food for their master so that it may one day return to its full strength and maybe continue its mission. If this turns out to be true and Oroboros does return to its past strength along with all these Trotters, can you imagine how monstrous the Trotters would end up being? They are already functionally living black holes to begin with, which is even referenced in Oroboros' description. The resume of these Trotters doesn't stop there though. On top of their space warping abilities and nigh infinite stomach, the Trotters are also far more intelligent than we might give them credit for. While they do seem to be only interested in eating, some Trotters have displayed levels of intelligence that far surpass what a simple creature should be capable of. Topaz's Trotter Nambi, for example, is able to even write letters for her. Could the Trotters in fact be tricking us, making us and the rest of the universe think that they are weak and defenseless creatures, while in secret, they actually originate from one of the most ferocious eons to exist? Are they really in fact cosmic eldritch horrors who consume without care, and at the end of the story, if we leave them be, nothing but the dark void of space remains, with everything else being eaten by a Trotter and perhaps their long slumbering master? Who can say for sure? For now, these things just appear as docile and even friendly creatures who just want to live their life eating whatever they find, and thanks to the most recent event, we even have one as a pet aboard the Astral Express. How long before it eats us? Only time will tell. That does it for this video though. If you enjoyed it, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.